guy in Australia, and I think you're the first one we've ever interviewed from down under. I'm pretty sure
Uh,
about that.
I
Yeah.
feel honored.
But I've featured a few of Ryan's articles that I thought were very, very well done. And I've read a few more of them now. And so I wanted to get Ryan's take, especially on why marketers go after shiny objects.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, firstly. So I'm creative director and head of copy. That is my official title at Wellmark. We're a healthcare marketing agency in Melbourne, in Australia, as you just mentioned. I've been there a very long time, longer than sort of most people in this industry would stay in a single place. But yeah, so I've been working in healthcare communications for 15 years. And I suppose, as you've kind of touched on there, I've got a bit of a reputation, I suppose, as a bit of a marketing contrarian. I'm fairly visible on Twitter and LinkedIn and so on, for my takes on where the marketing industry seems to be heading, and as you've just mentioned, our infatuation, I guess you'd say, with some of the latest trends and the shiny new things. So yeah.
Well, I saw it. Your first article on LinkedIn, the oldest one that I could find, was talking about how marketers describe their marketing companies with a string of not well understood or defined creative words.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved your diagram about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which I think is one of the more intelligent pieces of work. I have read the book and the movie. Really enjoyed the old one, not the new one. In
Yeah.
the sense of what, when you find out what was going on at the end, where he just wants to find a decent, someone decent to give everything to. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's all a game all the way through. It's all a game. And I really love that. I love that picture of reality, because that could be what we're in. We could be in a giant simulation. And
Yeah, and I mean, that was my point with that little table. Yeah, but that was absolutely my point. Was that that was actually really well done, and almost it was antithetical to what we see in marketing a lot these days, which is kind of bluff and nonsense and stuff that purports to be intelligent, but it really isn't. So that's why I think I called it the pretension trap, that sort of a lot of marketers fall into. So yeah.
Every few days, I get an introduction from someone on LinkedIn about their company, and it's unique and creative and high quality, and they string them all together.
Not only is a lot of it nonsensical and incomprehensible to most people, but it's also what everyone else is saying, and so it's not even differentiating, because a lot of companies are saying the same thing.
So then the next article I read was about big data, and I really liked that one. That data is self-revealing, which is just silly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in marketing sadly haven't had an education in statistics, or they don't really understand the difference between correlation and causation. There's I mean, obviously the vanity metrics thing with social media is a huge issue. So yeah, there's a lot of data out there that that marketers are using as a crutch, which doesn't really mean anything. It's it's informing a lot of decisions that are the wrong ones. Yeah, it's a bit depressing.
But of the three, my very favorite was the acronyms that marketers need to know.
Yeah, right.
And my favorite of those was CTI, call to inaction.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I did some work for Oakley sunglasses. They handed me a mailing piece. They were going to try direct mail, and they handed me a mailing piece. And I said, "There's no call to action. There's no way for someone to respond to that." And they
Yeah.
opened it up and they showed me an inside copy block about this big, and they had a phone number in there about, in regular body copy type. And it's like, there it is right there. I said, no, that doesn't count.
It touches on something that I don't know. Do you know Drayton Bird? He has an email series that he sends out, and one of his major themes is that often people forget to ask for a sale. They forget to remind people that just ask them whether they want to buy, and so call to action is a very prominent theme among his emails. But yeah, it's amazing how often it seems to be forgotten.
I do want to hear more about what you do for medical market. Do you have any data, or how do you approach medical marketing?
Yeah, well, I think you've touched on a couple of things there. So first of all, yeah, you're right that the US and New Zealand are effectively, well, as far as I know, certainly in the markets that we've ever worked in, those are the two that allow direct marketing to consumers.
Yeah.
So marketing of pharmaceutical products to the general public.
Right.
That is not allowed in Australia. So we can only market branded pharmaceutical products to healthcare professionals. Anything that goes to consumers has to be unbranded. So that can only be disease awareness, so-called. So you can raise awareness of a particular condition for which a pharmaceutical product is used,
and then ask your doctor for more information.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's how it works. And then but then obviously the marketing the branded marketing will go out to the doctor, and you hope that there's a sort of a meeting in the middle where people will ask their doctor about the condition, and the doctor will have seen the branded product marketing and say, well, they'll recommend that product. So that's pretty much how it works here. I will say that having recently worked with a New Zealand company, pharmaceutical company, we have done some consumer advertising for a product over there, which was it was such a different thing to be able to do that it's remarkable and really liberating in some ways. But I do have to say that it's definitely not a free for all.
Right.
They still have,
I'm sure it's not.
They still have pretty strict regulations on what you can and can't say, the tone of the advertising and so on. So yeah, it's definitely not a free for all. And as you've also touched on there, you also have to, there are lots of caveats that you have to include in your advertising. But I know what you mean. I've seen some of those US ads, and there's a striking contrast between what they're saying in the ads and kind of the disclaimers at the end. So it's an interesting dichotomy there. But yeah, look, regulation is a really tricky beast in medical marketing. Obviously, it's something that we kind of deal with every day, really, and what I think, my second point was around the creative aspect of it, which is, and again, you've alluded to it there, which is there tends to be a sort of a genericization of pharmaceutical advertising where you get a lot of smiling, happy stock photo type imagery and so on, because that's what, partly I think it's what comes out of the pharmaceutical approval process, but also
and the briefs. We want everybody to look happy, even though
but also because that's kind of the tradition in pharmaceutical advertising, and I think clients and agencies to some extent gravitate towards what they have seen. So that sort of, there's a bit of a normalized distribution or something that happens, but which is why when you see really good pharmaceutical advertising and healthcare advertising, it really stands out, and that's actually been happening a lot more in the last few years. There's been a real lift in the standard of creativity. So that's that's promising.
So what does good look like?
Well, I think to some extent what I've just touched on there, which is kind of breaking category conventions. You know, when you see something that's completely different from pharmaceutical advertising, it really stands out and you know, gets your attention and does all those things that, you know, good advertising should do. You know, advertising in a general sense. Yeah.
Well, I was a big fan of David Ogilvy and his book Confessions of an Ad Man, and he said if you're advertising a kidney ailment or incontinence or something, put it in the headline. And I
Yeah.
did get a chance to work with Mary and Merrill Dow on when Cardizem was going generic. And I ran the numbers for and set up the test grid with Leo Burnett, which was a lot of fun. And but I offered him a proposed test headline, which was Cardizem users read this ad or drop dead.
That'll get your attention.
I think you would have really, I think you would have pulled a lot of leads, you know. I think we would have gone crazy with that, but they didn't. No, they didn't think that would be.
I've been there, John. I've been there.
I think we could have tested it, you know, on a small number. It would have been a lot of fun, but no, they weren't fun. They weren't that much fun. But we ended up. I'm sorry.
I was going to, yeah, pharmaceutical companies aren't known for being fun, generally speaking, but yeah, no, there are exceptions.
Well, I mean, that's what they were telling me, you know, in the briefs and stuff. They were saying, well, you know, we have all this quality control, and if Cardizem goes generic, then anybody can get it anywhere, and maybe even over the counter. And if they misuse it, you can die. So I was just taking what they said and boiling it down in a simple way.
Always good to, you know, paraphrase what people have said. Yeah,
but part of what we were doing was we were testing mass media against mail. This was before digital. And it turned out that mail, we had a number of mass media channels, but it turned out that mail was by far the best, because in those days the US marketed just like you said, where, you know, whatever you talked about, it was then see your doctor. And because this was so serious, I mean, that was their whole company, was Cardizem, which is anti-angina medicine.
Yeah.
Because of that, they wanted to get to the consumer directly. And what we found was that mail was way more cost effective than media in terms of the cost per lead and the effectiveness then of people writing for information and all that. And so what media do you guys use? Are you mostly digital these days, or what?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Because of the fact that, you know, I think generally speaking, healthcare is a bit of a laggard when it comes to, you know, embracing digital technology and doctors in particular. So it has changed quite a lot in the last few years, I would say. But you know, a few years ago, we were still sending, well, not even a few years ago, even a couple of years ago, we were sending out faxes to GP surgeries, and it was you know, it was the most, in some cases, it was the most effective channel that we had. You know, we were getting better responses from fax mailers than anything else. Which people, we've said this to clients, and they literally don't believe us, but it's true. So yeah, look, direct mail is we still use it a lot for GPs and specialists, like literal physical direct mail.
Sure.
It's still an effective channel. Obviously, you know, we do EDMs, we do, you know, a lot more digital media now, obviously. But
wait, what's an EDM?
Oh, sorry, electronic direct mail. Yeah. So basically. But I mean, they vary in their level of complexity, you know, technological complexity. But yeah, we do EDNs, we do, you know, trade advertising, all the sort of, I mean, kind of adaptations of what we have always done, really. You know, trade advertising now is generally digital rather than being sort of physical printed journals and so on. So
Oh,
it's
right.
really
That
been,
way. Yes. Yes. I get it.
yeah, yeah. So, conference advertising, conference sponsorship. It's really all the stuff that we used to do, but kind of digitized, generally speaking. So yeah,
Yeah, you can. You can do pretty much all of it. Although
yeah,
now, what's interesting in the US, I don't know if I didn't know this. I just found it out a few weeks ago. I was in the airport, sort of stuck waiting for the plane, and another person that I'd met at a conference was also there. And so we got to talking. And she said that now, with COVID and other things, the pharmaceutical companies, the 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 doctors put in, the patient's names electronically, they put in the prescriptions electronically, and so now that information is required to be shared with the pharmaceutical companies for their studies and other things. And so her printing company specializes in mailings to the patient regarding drug information. And
right.
it's sort of like, if you own a car and they say it needs a recall,
Yeah, yeah,
somebody better know who bought those, who owns that kind of car. And but she said the problem is that she handles millions of PDFs with precise health information and a person's name, and she's
yeah,
expected to print those, and she's expected to accept liability of them being right, because there's privacy violations. And
sure.
if somebody says, well, I got this and I've never taken this medication, and maybe they don't remember, I don't know, but
Yeah,
they can complain. Her whole business is in jeopardy with
yeah,
with
yeah,
with the way they wrote this legislation. She's liable. The pharmaceutical company who may have sent her the wrong thing, or the data processor, uh, are not as directly liable as she is, because she's doing the last step.
yeah, yeah. Look, I think that's analogous to a situation that we have had in the past where we've managed patient support programs
Yeah.
for particular pharmaceutical products. And so we've been in receipt of patient data to some extent, not sort of sensitive patient data particularly,
Whether you
but
want it or not, right?
yeah, kind of. And so, we've had to increase our insurance and so on, and potentially liable for the sort of information that an agency like ours, should never really be liable for. So yeah, it's a very tricky once you start getting into patient information, it's tricky.
It's very tricky.
Yeah, it's late for you, isn't it?
But I really appreciate you taking time like this. And do you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
Mark Ritson by any chance? Melbourne
I,
isn't
I,
too far from
I,
Tasmania, which is where I think he lives.
yeah, I know Mark very well. He was my lecturer. I went to Melbourne Business School about 10 years ago,
Okay.
and he was my lecturer there. And we stayed in touch, and he's actually referred a few clients to me, and yeah, we've met up at a couple of conferences and stuff. Yeah, no, I know him well. I love Mark.
Oh, he is my very, very favorite commentator. This won't be in there, I'm sure, but
He's
he
fantastic.
he is his articles. I don't do 100% of them, but I do about 80% of his articles. I feature on my
Yeah,
daily show,
yeah.
and he's really
Uh,
insightful.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, I guess so. I would love to meet him sometime. I always tag him, but he doesn't comment. I wish he would, but
He's a very funny man. He's hilarious.
he is.
Thank you
I
so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So have a great day. Like and share. Your friends will know you're smart. And thank you again, Ryan, for being on the show.
Yeah, that sounds like an overstatement, but yeah, sure. I shall share
I'm serious about it. I think if people would watch this, they'd get smarter.
it.